You're floating peacefully in the vast emptiness of space when suddenly you fall. Where to? A black hole, of course. Don't panic. We've got you covered with all the answers to what would happen if you fell into a black hole. How does gravity work near a black hole? How much time would you see pass while falling? And could you survive the journey? Let's start at the beginning. Let's say you're far away from the black hole and begin to feel its gravitational pull. The strength of this force depends on the mass of the black hole and how far you are from it. The further away you are, the weaker the gravitational pull. This is just like the Earth's gravity. The further you go away from it, the weaker its pull becomes. However, there's one major difference between a black hole and our Earth. As you approach a black hole, its gravity becomes stronger and stronger, not weaker and weaker like Earth's gravity. That's because black holes have an infinite density. Yes, we said infinite. To understand why, let's look at Earth's gravity. Earth has a lot of mass, but it also takes up quite a bit of space. This means that if you were to measure its density, you would get a finite number. But a black hole has almost zero volume, or at least so small that it's practically zero. And it still has a lot of mass. This makes it infinitely dense. So, as you get closer and closer to a black hole, its gravity gets stronger and stronger. At some point, it would become stronger than the speed of light. Since nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, this means nothing can escape a black hole's grasp once it crosses a certain point of no return called the event horizon. At this point, you might be thinking, if nothing can escape a black hole, then how are we getting any information about them? It turns out that although nothing can cross the event horizon and escape, things can still come from behind it and escape. For example, material that was close enough to the black hole when it was born may have been able to escape its gravitational pull before it became too strong. This material doesn't just float away, though. It falls around the black hole in random directions, making a disk-shaped cloud of gas and dust around it. This is called an accretion disk. Because these particles are escaping from the black hole, they move faster than anything else in space, including light. So even if we can't see inside a black hole, we can observe these fast-moving particles and learn a lot about what's going on inside. Speaking of what's going on inside, let's talk about your journey. Once you fall past the event horizon, there's no turning back. Although you won't actually see the horizon since nothing can escape from beyond it, you will know you've crossed it when the sky behind you suddenly goes dark. That's because light can only escape from regions where gravity is weaker than the speed of light. So once you're in a region where gravity is stronger than the speed of light, there's no way for light to reach you. If you try to turn around after crossing the event horizon, you'll find yourself moving faster and faster towards the center of the black hole. As you approach the center, everything around you will be moving faster and faster as well. Because you're unable to communicate with anyone outside the black hole, whether through light or any other means, you wouldn't know any of this was happening. However, if you had a way to communicate with someone outside the black hole, they would see you slowing down to a stop as you approached the center. From their perspective, you would appear to be frozen in time as you reached the center of the black hole. As you continue falling towards the center of the black hole, the temperature of the gas around you would increase dramatically. If you were hot enough, you would be completely burned to ashes. Even if you weren't hot enough to burn, the pressure of the gas would be so great that it would crush you into a pancake. So, unless you're made of really tough stuff, you wouldn't survive the trip across the event horizon. And it's not just the intense heat and pressure that would be deadly. The intense gravity would stretch your body into a thin noodle. This process is called spaghettification. But don't worry, you wouldn't feel any pain during any of this. In fact, you wouldn't feel anything at all because you would have already been burnt to a crisp or crushed into a pancake. Now, if you managed to survive the trip through the event horizon, you wouldn't for long. Eventually, you would run into the singularity. This is the center of the black hole where all of the matter that has fallen in is concentrated. Since there's so much matter packed into such a small space, the gravity here is infinite. It would be so strong that it would rip your body apart at the atomic level. So, even if you survived the intense heat, pressure, and stretching, You wouldn't survive the singularity. Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about time. What would happen to time if you fell into a black hole? Well, it depends on your perspective. If you fell into a black hole, time would essentially stop for you. That's because nothing can escape a black hole, not even light, and we use light to measure time. So without light, there's nothing to measure time with. Time would essentially just stop. However, from the perspective of someone outside the black hole, time would continue to pass normally. They would see you approaching the black hole, and then they would see you freeze as you reached the event horizon. After that, time would continue to pass normally for them. They would see the accretion disk around the black hole, and they would see new stars being born and old stars dying. They would see entire galaxies form and fly by. They would watch their own planet's orbit decay and eventually collide with another planet. They would watch their sun expand and engulf their planet. They would watch the universe expand and contract, and then expand again. They would watch life evolve and die out on countless planets. All the while, from their perspective, you would be frozen in time as you approached the black hole. But what if you looked back towards the black hole as you fell through it? What would you see? Well, from your perspective, nothing would change. You would continue to fall towards the black hole and everything around you would continue to move normally. However, what you saw behind you would change. As you approached the black hole, you would see the light from the stars behind you getting brighter and brighter until it was as bright as the sun. Then, as you crossed the event horizon, the light from the stars behind you would suddenly go out. You would be left in total darkness as you fell towards the singularity. But what if you had a way to see beyond the darkness? What would you see if you could see past the event horizon? Well, you wouldn't see anything. That's because no light could reach you. However, if you had a way to see things that aren't visible to the naked eye like an X-ray machine, you would see something amazing. As you approached the black hole, you would see the X-rays from the stars behind you getting brighter and brighter until they were as bright as the X-rays from the sun. Then, as you crossed the event horizon, the X-rays from the stars behind you would suddenly go out. You would be left in total darkness as you fell towards the singularity. So, what would happen if you fell into a black hole? You'd be met with intense heat, pressure, and gravity. You'd be stretched into a noodle and ripped apart at the atomic level. And time would stop for you. But at least you'd have a front row seat to one of the most amazing sights in the universe. We hope you enjoyed learning more about what would happen if you fell into a black hole. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment below. We love hearing from you. Also, if you want to keep learning about the amazing universe we live in, check out our website. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.